Hello, crafty friends! It's Alicia here with a project for Tailored Expressions. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make 8 cute, quick, and easy cards that are perfect for the Valentines, Galentines, or loved ones in your life. Today's cards feature the Around Town Love layering stencil with coordinating dies, the Around Town Heart stencil, and for my sentiments, I'll be using the Love is in the Air red rubber stamp with coordinating dies. For cardstocks, I got out sugar cube, oyster, and dried fig, and for the inks, I'll be using oyster, dried fig, guava, and pink champagne. For added decoration, I'll be using vellum, stitched circle stacklets, and enamel dots in dried fig, guava, and pink champagne. To help get a good impression when I stamp, I got out the exclusive TE Teal Misty, the Just Press tool, and I got out my blender brushes for stenciling. And I'll be using a variety of adhesives to hold everything together. Let's get crafty! I'm going to get started with the Around Town Love layering stencil set, so I pulled that in and my 3 inks. I'm going to start with pink champagne and layer number 1. I am stenciling onto a piece of sugar cube that I cut down to 6 inches by 6 inches, and when I ink up my brush, I use clockwise and counterclockwise motions to help fill in all of the open areas. Now, once I have that first layer down, I'm going to bring in stencil number 2 and guava ink. This stencil has quite a few squares that are used to line up the additional layers, so make sure when you go to place that second one down, you start with those. Once that was in place, I used my guava ink in the same way, making sure to get a nice consistent coverage and get all of those openings inked up. Next, I moved on to stencil number 3 and used the dried fig ink. I thought these 2 shades of pink and purple would work well for some Valentine's cards. And now it's time for the big reveal. Just look at all of those cute images we have to use on our cards. I brought in the coordinating dies, and now those alignment squares that helped us with stenciling will help us line up each of our dies for easy cutting. Because I had so many images to use for cards, I decided that when I brought in the Love is in the Air stamp set that I would go ahead and stamp each of these sentiments. So I grabbed a scrap of sugar cube cardstock, I think it was about a 5-inch square, and I got all of the stamps laid out on that piece. Now make sure if you're going to do this that you leave enough room for the dies. Once I had that layout all figured out, I picked up the stamps with the Door of the Misty and inked them up well with the dried fig ink. I used the Just Press tool so that I was able to get a nice crisp impression on that first stamp. I took these off camera with the coordinating dies and cut each of them out. To make sure those cute images really popped from the background, I went with a tone-on-tone look. I used the Around Town Hearts background stencil on 2 sheets of oyster cardstock and ink blended with oyster ink. And you'll see here they're just nice and subtle, but they add a little something extra. Off camera, I cut these pieces down to 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and I ended up with 8 card fronts. For my card bases, I used dried fig cardstock, and I made 6 vertical and 2 horizontal. My next step was to get the oyster pieces onto the card fronts, and you'll see here it just leaves a nice dried fig border all the way around. I did do most of this off camera, and then it was time to get these pieces decorated. To do this, I brought in all of the sentiments and die cut images, and then I just started picking a sentiment and an image and figuring out how I wanted it to look on the card. Now for this first one, I wanted the hot air balloon to stand out a little from the background. So off camera, I cut a vellum circle with the second from largest stitch circle stacklets. Now you'll see when I place that behind the pieces, they stand out just a little bit more. Once I had figured out what I wanted to go on each card, I set it to the side and then I started putting together the focal points for the rest of the cards. After I had that all figured out, I started adhering the pieces. Some I just glued flat down onto the card bases, other pieces I popped up with some foam tape. For some added shine and embellishing, I brought in enamel dots in dried fig, guava, and pink champagne, and I placed 3 to 5 of these around the front of each card. When I use a darker cardstock for a card base, I do like to add a piece of sugar cube to the inside to make the personal message easy to read. For these cards, I also thought it would be fun to add a little extra decoration, so I brought back in that Around Town heart stencil, and I'm going to use that bottom left panel and add one dried fig heart to the inside. I got my first piece of sugar cube in place, and then I brought in some removable labeling tape to cover up the areas that I did not want stenciled. Then, using dried fig ink and kind of a light hand with the blender brush, I added some extra color to the inside. Let me know in that comment section below your favorite way to add decorations to the inside of your cards. Once I had stenciled all 8 panels, I put the cards together off camera, and here are some close-up looks at the finished set. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch today's video. If you enjoyed the process, a thumbs up is appreciated. And if you're not already a subscriber, we do hope you'll click on the button below so you're the first to know about our latest videos. To find out more about the products I used today, you can check out the links in the description box below or visit the Tailored Expressions online store at tailoredexpressions.com.